Thank you for joining us wherever you are. This podcast episode is brought to you by the Old Ways Actual Play team. This actual play uses the Cipher System rules by Monty Cook Games. This actual play is performed by adults and contains adult themes. We're happy to have you with us on this journey of cosmic wonder. All content, including names, places, events, companies, and etc., which may bear resemblance to entities living from the vast reaches of unknown space, are strictly coincidental. My name is Michael Diamond, and for tonight's game, I will be your game master. Thank you for joining us again, another episode of the Old Ways podcast. I am your game master this evening, Michael Diamond. My pronouns are he, him. And we are back with another episode of Children of the Periphery, our Monty Cook Games Cipher System sci-fi adventure tale. We've had some developments recently, but one of the things that has been going on for some time is our Patreon channel, which you can join if you'd like at patreon.com/the Old Ways podcast. It is one way you power many of the things that we do. And it's great. We love all the interactions here on the Patreon and on the Discord and eventually on Twitch. So if you want to come see us do what we do over in the streaming sense, you can do that at twitch.tv/the Old Ways Twitch. And now we're going to get right to player and character introductions because, boy, there are some things a-bubbling. And that'll begin to my right.
Hi, this is Morgan, and I play Captain Amara Casfra. Our pronouns are she, her, and Amara is a brash explorer who learns quickly. That might come in handy in this episode. Maybe.
Captain, would you say you've learned anything yet?
Probably not.
We're going to find out, right? We're going to find out. Next to Captain Amara.
Hi, this is Rena. I play Tamarisk Anvari. Our pronouns are they, them. Tamarisk is an empathic speaker who commands mental powers, and I yet again had to talk the group out of a bad plan.
Yeah, it's like getting to be a thing, right? It's just getting to be an old hobby horse that you sort of jump up on and have to do. I think it's great. At the end of the table.
Hello there, my name is Mare, and I play Cordelia Oren. Our pronouns are she, her, and Cordelia is a beneficent warrior who wears power armor. The power armor of the Legionnaire, the Legionnaire's power armor, the power armor that Legionnaires wear, like the one that she's about to go and speak to that has a higher rank than her.
Yeah, it is sort of like a pyramid scheme of sorts, I suppose. But unfortunately for Cordelia, she didn't get a chance to wake up any of her lessers. And something happened, and a major general has awoken. And this is going to be real fun, promise. Last but most certainly not least.
Hi, this is John. I'm playing Fida, the ship's mechanic. We both use he, him pronouns. And Fida is a mechanical explorer who talks to machines, which we haven't tried taking out someone's power armor while they're wearing it, which could be good to know if we can do that. But all I know is that I'm not meant to talk unless spoken to and look pretty. I think those are my instructions. I don't remember the second one being said, but I felt like it was implied.
Certainly. I'm certain all of the crew implied that you should continue to stand there and look pretty, immediately at least in your mind, legend that you are. So we are going to raise the curtain tonight with the echoes of footsteps in the hallways, the passageways in the Nadir. So the movement back towards the bridge is not terribly difficult. You all know the way. In some way, probably you wish you didn't at this point. But getting back to the main elevator bank, you're able to take the lift there up until you get to the bridge level. And that's really, really where things begin to change. So exiting off of that, or as the lift gates and doors open, because it's sort of this concoction of doors, actually. There's an inner and an outer lift door. And those of you who've been in space for a while would know that bigger elevators commonly have multiple doors. That's just to keep things sealed up properly. So as those doors open, you see something familiar, Cordelia, although a little dimmer than you're used to seeing. We'll just put it that way. You see a slate gray and forest green version of the power armor you wear. You see two legionnaires in the hallway that flank the elevator. They have weapons at rest, and They visually acknowledge you as you come out. You get nodded at for a moment. And then as they continue to sort of, I suppose, take your measure, when you step out of the elevator, they stand crisply and salute you.
She returns the salute for them to go back at ease and then makes her way forward, gesturing for the others to follow, very closely indicating to them that they are with her. They are her charges.
Okay. You exit the elevator. They acknowledge the other people who are with you by, again, very curt nods. There's not a whole lot of extraneous movement from them. Maybe it's because they're still getting over their cryo sleep and they're really just, as you can imagine, probably just silently hoping that they don't have to do anything. They just have to stand here. They just have to make it through this. This is one of those days, right? You know, the first day at a cryo, you remember it really well. It is likely what they want to do is just stand there and exist until they can get to a rest cycle. They don't want to have to do anything because the world spins a little bit. But yeah, the bridge awaits deeper in. We all know your way there.
Cordelia continues to lead them through, continuing to do the salute and passing by with each of the Legionnaires that she finds. And she would just, cast a glance every now and then back towards the others to kind of check in how they're doing.
Yeah, you guys, the group only sees 4 Legionnaires, or 2 Legionnaires, when you exit the elevator. You don't see anything else until you get to the bridge.
Cordelia approaches the bridge, accesses the panel to open the doors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it hisses open. You hear sounds coming from inside the bridge. It is completely lit now, unlike it was when you first arrived here. All of the main daylights are on, and it also looks like several of the cryopods that were in here have been removed, including Icarus's pod. In the center of the bridge, so it's a mostly like a sunken living room. That's sort of the idea that I've always had about it is there's this outer ring where people come in and they can move around in the station sort of on an upper tier level, and then it sinks down one level, and then eventually the central level is just one more step or a couple steps down, and that's where the main table is that has the wireframe screen and some of the other electronic stations here. But as you step in, Cordelia, you see to your right and to your left, there are a total of 4 Legionnaires in this room, all in armor. They're working stations. And then down at the center, you see another Legionnaire who's in this, again, slate gray power armor suit, but instead of forest green, he has this sort of brass accents. The stars on his uniform are really easy to see, as is pretty common with all of the general ranks in the Legionnaires. They're pretty easy to recognize.
Cordelia makes her way in and approaches Major General, and she salutes.
He acknowledges you. He doesn't have his helmet on. Actually, none of the Legionnaires in here have their helmets on because it's not necessary. So you see a couple of the Legionnaires at the top are both relatively well cared for. It looks like they have, I'll just say, fresh haircuts. It's likely that their hair probably grew a little bit in cryo, and so some of the folks up there probably had real quick stops in their bunks to get their hair in order. Everybody here is mostly clean shaven. The Major General probably has a little bit of stubble based on time he's been awake. He steps not towards you, but sort of opens his stance a little bit and extends his arm out towards you. Colonel, and just gestures down towards the opposite end of the table. And he puts an eye, a set of eyes sort of on each one of you as you make your way down. For those of you who are paranoid, which is likely at least 75, if not 100% of you, you would notice that the Legionnaires who are up top, 2 of them walk from their stations and they stand in front of the door that you walk through, which is pretty standard SOP for you, Cordelia. You know what they're doing, even if you don't like what they're doing. Yeah, if people try to run, there's people at the top of steps in front of the door, they're going to get in the way. And
Are there chairs around this table?
Are there chairs around the table? No, there are no chairs. Everybody's standing because it's like a standing desk, and we stand when we work because we're Legionnaires.
This makes me very uncomfortable,
Likely, yes.
but I'm hiding it as best as I can.
This is not the first time I've been detained.
Cordelia would stand and she would gesture to the others. Major General, may I please introduce to you Captain Amara Kasra, Tamara Scanvari, and Vida, as Cordelia recalls that she believes it's just Vida, did not ever get a surname.
Vida just raises a hand, like small wave.
They were present aboard this vessel when I awoke and came out of cryo. And then that was when we were able to ascertain the dire straits that this vessel is in.
How long ago was that, Colonel?
She would look down to the recorder on her arm. How long ago was that?
It's probably been well over a week, maybe more, maybe 10 days since you've come out of cryo and all these things have happened.
A little over a week. We saw the straits that this vessel was in. We had limited food, limited supplies, limited resources, no way to create fresh water. So I made the call to not activate any more of the cryopods in order to preserve the resources before pulling up. It is so that we could then seek out another source, which we have procured.
You made the call.
I did.
I wonder if you think that was the right call to make.
In the moment, yes. As the limited resources, the limited power available to this vessel, this group of people had another who was with them who had who had issues coming out of cryo themselves, and they lost them. I grew concerned that with the circumstances that we were in, that if similar things were to happen, then we would be in even further dire straits and down the loss of many good men.
Well, I hope you've all had a wonderful week and a half. The mission orders that you were given, Colonel, are pretty direct, and they're direct for a reason, right? The directive is to make sure that everyone stays alive. And so far, we've lost 90% of the Nadir. That's a pretty dramatic loss. Can you tell me where the rest of the ship is?
That was an unfortunate discovery upon coming out of cryo. I do not know what took place, and I was unable to access the recordings or the memory for this vessel upon my waking. However, it does seem that more time has passed for us in cryo than was initially anticipated for the colony ship.
You have any idea how much time?
Yes.
You're not actually sure on the exact. It's several hundred years.
We are not certain the exact time that has passed based on our solar cycles from Earth. However, it seems that closer to 200, if not more, years have passed since the Nadir left Earth's atmosphere. Thus, some of the stores of foods, when we began to look for them, were well and far past their expiration and viability. And additionally, I have no idea what could have caused 90% of the ship to separate. Oh, nor do I know how long that has been that way upon waking from cryo 10 days ago.
Given the totality of the news, the general seems to take it pretty well. Perhaps it's years of training hearing awful, awful, awful news. And so his mentality is one that has heard just terrible things. And so there's no there's no physical response that you see when he tells you that. He just sort of continues. He seems to, pardon the phrase, soldier on. So I have some questions. You, Colonel, at one point used a external device to access the ship's memory and its operational features because you don't have the authority to run the ship. So I would like to know how you did that. And then I'd like to know why.
For the why, it was to assess our current situation without putting us at risk of losing more lives based on the uncertain state of the cryopods.
And the how?
As you can see, in the time that we were in cryo, others have been able to access this computer and to use it. I used resources that were from the period of time, I suppose, that adjusted access to the ship.
You see his breathing is beginning to increase. Like Tamara said, something you'd probably pick up on first. Like you realize that Cordelia is doing an admirable job of trying to explain things, but you also know that she's effectively dancing around details, and the general's not dumb to the idea that she's doing this. You see all of that in the pantomime. Like he sees that it's going on. And it's at that point that he turns sharply to you, Fida, and says, "You mind explaining to me what the fuck is going on? Because it's clear that the colonel can't explain it to me without worrying me about something. I need to know what the facts are, or I'm just going to throw you all in the brig. That simple."
All right. Where do you want me to start, sir?
I'd like to know who violated our computer protocol.
Oh, that was me.
Why?
I needed information to be able to keep your ship from dying.
Okay.
Your systems were offline, your generator was offline, and I needed access to all of them.
Okay. And you did that at the colonel's behest? Or your own?
My own.
Okay. That's helpful.
The colonel benefited from it, but I did it at my own initiative.
Certainly. There's a vessel in our cargo bay. Is that your vessel?
That vessel is the collective property of Captain Amara, myself, and Mix and Vari here.
I see. So I'll save the other questions that I have surrounding that. I'll just consider that you're not from around here.
We are from the Zenith.
He looks genuinely confused. Wait, where's the Zenith?
Out of system. He just kind of pauses. He's like, "Sir, the Zenith is now Coriolis Station, in orbit around the planet Coriolis."
Cornell what?
He's like, "Corn? Coriolis. Coriolis. It's a station. I grew up there. You have to understand, sir."
So it arrived. It arrived where it was supposed to go?
Absolutely. Safe and sound.
Good.
The Nadir was not discovered until a couple of years ago by a rogue element. He's the one responsible for the work you see here, and he kind of gestures towards the loose cabling and the jerry-rigging and stuff. And he's just like, he wasn't a specialist, he wasn't a ship's engineer like I am, but he did a good job with what he had at the time. Unfortunately, he had several issues with repairing it. You need to understand, Major General, there was a threat when we established, when the Nadir arrived and the expeditionary fleets. Flyda is tapping into like childhood memories of classes, and he's like trying to remember the exact terms. And he's like, "You have to understand, there was something that wasn't expected in system when we arrived in what became known as the Third Horizon."
He looks genuinely concerned.
You are from what we would call the Second Horizon.
Okay. So the Nadir doesn't arrive safely in that Second Horizon.
She's considered lost.
And then some rogue element gets a hold of parts of her somehow.
He found what we're in, sir, the 10% at best or so that with the systems and the crew on board. Unfortunately, numerous systems seem to have been damaged. I didn't get to talk with him a lot before he died. We came across your vessel, the Nadir here, while fleeing. Fida has memories of the sun being blacked out, while fleeing an existential threat.
Okay. why don't I enlighten you all to what our directives are and how they work? That way you all know why I'm doing what I'm going to do. The Nadir was meant to colonize worlds. That was its purpose. Unfortunately for us, our planet had been ravaged. It had been misused, and the people had to flee. You know that part, I'm sure. Certain that the Colonel here has enlightened you to some of the things that went on before we left. If not, I'll spare you the history lesson. It was bad. Society had broken down. War had taken over parts of the world. And while the shells were still being fired, we fled because it was the best thing we could do. And the Zenith went one way, and Nadir went another. Not two completely separate paths, but they were never meant to land all in one place. There was concern putting our eggs all in one basket. And so when I was released from cryo, I think the thing that I found most curious was why people had already been active. The Colonel and I will talk about that in private. My mission now is to ensure the safety of the colonists who are here. From everything I can see on our planetary sensors, it seems that the planet beneath us is reasonable enough to begin the operation. And so I have already directed the computer system to begin the colonization process. As the hours move forward, the process will move forward as well, and will wake the next 25 to 50 members of the administrative staff, and we'll begin assembling a small outpost.
People already live on that planet.
Two warring factions, actually. It's a bit complicated down there. Advanced technology.
Colonel, are you aware of this?
Yes, sir.
I'll expect a full report.
Yes, sir.
So far, we have good relations with one faction. General, I would like to make a point that the Lieutenant Colonel has been very pragmatic in her decision-making, and I would like to inform you of some of the conditions that she has faced since awaking. The ship's stores are essentially depleted. The food supplies are gone, effectively gone. There's very little left, enough to sustain the Marines you have awakened ourselves for a couple of months, maybe. We have just negotiated a delivery of water from the planet below, as well as the native water purification systems, which I haven't had a chance to examine yet, but which seem to be beyond superior to those that the Nadir was built with. And the reason that more people were not awoken sooner is because we could not support the population. As it stands, the Nadir has become stable. System-wise and storage-wise, she's in good condition. The main issues I think you are likely to face if you try to go down to that planet are, well, one, walking into a very fragile situation with, if I'm honest, weapons that we didn't have 200 years after you were, if you don't mind my saying so, sir, after you went into ice, technology advanced, your power armor is now outdated. Your weapons are presumably still functional, but we had better ones, sir. I am advising caution as a civilian acting in the interest of the colonists. We have done everything we could in interests of saving as many lives as possible. That has always been the core.
He raises his left hand. I think that's a clear enough picture, thank you. I appreciate your candor and reminding all of us here that you're a civilian. Until the council is awake and ready, the Legionnaires are in charge of the Nadir and the colonization process. We're also in charge of everyone on this ship. So I just want to make that clear. It's important for clarity because you are right that there is a resource issue. The planet below, though, looks like it's got arable land. It's got resources available for a small group to begin those processes. We can't caution our way out of this. We have to explore. We're going to have to build something because there's only so much oxygen on the Nadir. Would you agree?
And Fighter flips back in his head. He does some calculation. He's like, the amount of oxygen that's currently being consumed by the people awake is sustainable for a couple of years. If you wake everybody up, it's not. But if you keep them in cryo so that we don't have to deal with the antiquated technologies that you had for that, then yeah, sure. You'd have to get everybody out. I will say it is a hostile biome.
Hostile biome. Very good. Very good.
Again, trying to remember stuff from school. He's just like, I think this is the term they used to designate like a handful of planets we encountered.
Anyone else?
You should probably have a conversation with the two current civilizations that live on the planet. Just that would be the most logical thing to do.
I'm certain we'll make contact with them when they have to. Do you know where they are?
We do, but you should make contact before you decide to start building on a planet and utilizing resources that they might need, so you can come to an agreement on that. Didn't your procedures and process spell that out before you went out looking for a new planet to inhabit?
He smirks. It's an interesting way to think about things, Captain. It's just not necessarily the way that we do.
You can't just march into someone else's home and say, this is mine now.
I don't think we're marching into anyone's home. I'd like to know where these other factions are so that we can build nowhere near them.
We would know the Legionnaire history, right? And how they acted on old-timey Earth?
No. You'd have no frame of reference for First Horizon or Second Horizon Legionnaires. Nope. You would have one focus, which would be how they were on the Third Horizon, which are basically like high-powered mercenaries. Cordelia is like the outside example of that, which is, hey, I'm a shiny, happy space marine, and I'm really just trying to get along with everybody because I think it's easier. She's a beneficent warrior. Not all of the Legionnaires are beneficent either.
Yeah, he doesn't seem like he's beneficent. He seems like he's going to go there and take stuff.
Can I insight check that?
I mean, you could attempt to ascertain what the directives are.
Yeah, like that would be that. I would like to just that. I guess coming from the Second Horizon, as we are calling it, I would like to know essentially what would be the pattern. Yeah, those directives, the pattern that we would be planning to follow that I anticipate would be his next step.
So the large sort of broad brushstrokes of the idea would be to get the colony ship or ships to places where there are habitable worlds, and then inspect those worlds, do some sort of initial recon to see if they're A, breathable planets, B, have water that is sustainable, and then C, have places where they could actually touch down and begin making colonies. You would also know that the people coming out of these cryo pods, much like you were, they're in survival mode. And so the touch around the edges when it comes to diplomatic matters about what people can and cannot do are not going to matter as much to them, because he's thinking about one thing, which is how do the people survive? If they can't survive on the ship, they have to go somewhere. And so it's likely very black and white to the general, right? Because nuance and gray is not going to get the job done. And unfortunately, that's also very military thinking about how things get done. So that's likely the playbook he has in front of him. That's probably how he's feeling.
Sir, we do, through our time being out of cryo, have knowledge of other planets that we have not been able to explore with what the Nadir has, but through other sensors. Approximately 6, and she looks back to the others to confirm that that was the number. Approximately 6 planets that would have the ability for colonization, for settlement. Given that we have only just returned in our seeking for water and resources and obtaining water, She keeps emphasizing that point. Having just obtained water as well, with the population on the planet below, we could use some of these resources to seek out the other planets to find a more permanent settlement location.
He nods. I like the idea. But let's talk resources then. Anybody here know if we have the power and resources to make it to these planets?
Fight is running through calculations in his head, and he's just like, basically every time the crew have been like, well, yeah, it's been great. And he's just been kind of like, we can't go somewhere else. I've not known how to say it to the rest of the crew this time, because it's just like, we kind of need to find somewhere, like the ship systems are so damaged, Captain, that the time taken to travel between systems without some kind of jump device, such as those found in the Third Horizon, she would fail mid-journey.
Okay. So he nods real fast. So what we're saying then, he turns up sort of halfway back towards you, Tamaris, and says, so what we're saying is the ship has no feasible likelihood of being able to go anywhere else. So it must, for the survival of the people who live here, it must make some sort of colonization of that planet. You may not like it, but that's what will have to happen for people to live. We're not here to upset anybody's apple cart. None of you get that analogy except Cordelia. What we're here to do is make sure the people who are still alive here on the Nadir can survive. That's all I want.
We're in agreement on that.
We're not going down there to start a war.
We're in agreement with that, Major General, but I would think protocol dictates having a conversation with the Oni and Rockton.
Are you a soldier, Captain? Or is your captain in name only?
I spent my fair amount of time fighting. Not as a soldier, but my fair amount of time.
Did you just air quote that word in front of him, soldier?
Mm-hmm. But we should have a conversation with the Oni and Rockton. They have spent hundreds of years fighting each other, and we just got a treaty in place.
Well, you've been busy.
And it's only been 10 days. Imagine what I can do with 30.
Well, I think for the time being, we'll have to wait on that. I can't at the moment give you leave.
However, Major General, would it not be useful to have a diplomatic envoy, such as Captain Castra, Mix and Vari, and Fida?
We're not going to throw resources away, Colonel. That's not what we do. Certainly, we would be happy to commission them to do certain things to the betterment of humanity. That's why we're all here. I mean, after all, they've been in the ship, been in the systems. They've even had a chance to enjoy our galley.
We're not working for you.
Your coffee is very good, sir.
The thought being that until other civilian leadership has been exited from cryo, with this party being one that has had an establishment with a diplomatic situation on the planet, would it not be wiser then, instead of waking up the council at this time, to have this group serve as a connection point between us and the space below? In addition, they are also not technically citizens of our grouping within it. They almost serve as a third party that would be assisting in relations between the Nadir and the parties below.
Let me ask you something, Colonel. The folks below look different than us?
Yes.
Incredibly so.
Okay. So it won't matter to them where they're from. They look like us.
But they don't speak the language.
Right. That's understandable. What I mean, from their view, you all look like us. So third party or not, non-federated citizen or not, they'll be lumped in with us.
It is just like, every time this guy says something, Fight is like, fuck, he's right.
I would like, of course, to know, Captain, he says with sort of a veneer of sarcasm, who gave you your commission. And if you haven't worked as a soldier, how is it that you're called Captain? Is that a fancy name you picked out for yourself?
We were commissioned through Leah Marhoon, who's dead.
Oh.
And in the Third Horizon, we were commissioned the Periphery to do jobs for Miss Marhoon. Previously to that, my employment was with the Nomad Federation, which you've probably not heard of.
Not in the slightest. So this Marhoon, what governmental body did she work for?
She was a patron.
A patron.
Somebody with significant power and money. I'm sure you've experienced the same thing on your government on Earth. That no longer exists.
So this Marhoon, wealthy individual, commissioned you to do what?
To make a delivery.
I see. A delivery.
And we did so.
And you did it in that ship.
Correct. And we helped people along the way. And just like your government might have had corrupt individuals, our government did as well. Our solar system was made up of a variety of portals where you could get from one system to another. And that's how we did planetary travel with our ships. We, unfortunately, or fortunately, had the wrong people take notice of us. And there was a grate in the horizon that you came from. Was there ever mention of the darkness between the stars?
The what?
It's a great evil that would come and destroy a solar system, make people's hearts blacker. And so before the Nadir could be taken over by the darkness between the stars or some other government organization that would use you for whatever they needed, we helped and got the Nadir over to where we are now. Essentially saving your life.
Saving my life.
You were in a planet core. That is where your ship was sitting. It wasn't going anywhere.
That's an interesting tale.
It is.
This Marhoon you said is dead?
Yes, she was murdered by an alien being.
Well, it's quite the tale.
It is. I'm surprised we survived to make it here. And we want to help the people. We want to help your colonists find a planet. And this could be the planet, but we need to do it the right way. Not everything is military in nature.
You keep saying we, but then said earlier that you had no interest in working for us. I'm not sure you understand how we works.
I want to help and then go about my merry way. We have other interests here in this horizon. We're explorers. We want to explore.
Okay. He stands up a little straighter. Gates, Logan, show them to some crew quarters. Colonel, we're going to have a debriefing. Until this matter's resolved, that ship in the cargo bay stays here. So do you. And until we're certain there's nothing dangerous aboard that ship, no one goes on it.
I find your terms acceptable, with the exception of the fact that no one goes on it. That is still my ship. We're not here to harm you.
Certainly. But Captain, you're docked on my ship, which means you're in my house. I make the rules. I'm certain it's all just perfunctory until we can get some things sorted out.
I hold my tongue because the brashness in me wants to be like, WTF?
I would really like you to continue to go tit for tat with this guy. That would be fantastic. Please do.
I just nod my head because I'm sure there'll come another time where him and I get to have a conversation.
So at the top of the stairs, you see that the two legionnaires who are back at the door have come forward a little bit. They've made their rifles way easier to get a hold of, and they're sort of waiting for the crew to come back up.
I am going to ask a question. And just Fida just raises a hand like a kid in class. And he just stands there.
Yeah, go ahead.
Out of curiosity, General, who are the first people you're waking up?
Administrative. It's part of the directive. The way this operation works, as a check and balance, the administration team needs to be awoke so that way military coups don't happen.
Well, I appreciate you sticking to the plan.
Of course.
Look, I want you to know I'm available if anything does need fixing. If you'll let me, I'd be happy to keep my work going on some of the ship systems that need a bit of maintenance. If you need to send me with a babysitter,
I don't know about a babysitter, but
I can't run away.
Once some of the other staff, technical staff, has woken up, I'm certain that they'll want to get a history lesson.
Sure. And they'll need to know about the changes that were made to keep the ship running. There's just a few things that need work. Fida hasn't actually had any time off. Since we got on this ship, he hasn't really, aside from our fort, the night where he slept on board the ship. But yeah, he's just like, look, if you'll let me, I'd like to continue my work on board the vessel. I don't want to be stuck in my quarters if I can be doing work.
Well, we appreciate that kind of attitude around here. It's going to help us get things where they need to be. Certainly call on you. You all look like you might need a little rest anyway. And so once the next portion of the plan is enacted, certain you'll be on your merry way. Colonel, my office. He steps away from the table.
Yes, sir. And she follows behind him, looking back at the others briefly, and sighs, and steels herself, entering into the principal's office.
Yes. The general's office is actually not very big. It's maybe 9 by 14, 9 by 15. It's a small space, which is also sort of cloistering at the same time because there's nowhere to go. There's no big, expansive, Captain Picard office here with a fishbowl and a fun little refresher unit. There is a wall sort of sconce here that does dispense water, it looks like, but you wonder how long it's been since those lines have been run. So he sits down behind the desk and gestures to one of the 2 chairs in front of him.
She would take a seat.
I am struggling to figure out your method of thinking over 10 days.
She waits to see if he's going to say anything further.
I didn't want to bring it up in front of the rest of the people you were with. He sort of almost says crew and then doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
They smell like pirates. They have a ship which used to belong to someone else that they used for currying. And then that person is now dead. And they didn't exactly work for a government. They worked for somebody who was rich. Are you sure you know them?
Upon awaking and seeing the dire straits that the ship was in, as well as upon learning that not just a few decades, but a few centuries had passed, as well as they seem to have known whoever was on this vessel prior and were familiar with the technology that was keeping the Nadir going, I do understand that I broke protocol. I'm fully prepared to take the consequences of that. That being said, yes, they seem like they would be, but I don't believe that they are. I think that it is entirely possible, and as Fida began to mention, a lot has taken place over the last handful of days. I did not get the full story entirely.
You ever think that was on purpose?
I did. Very much so. But survival was a part of what needed to take place. And as you mentioned, more people breathing air on this vessel, more people consuming food on this vessel, and simply trying to establish the safety of the planet below became the priority, along with food and basic care of the living beings on the ship. Just getting the generators and the power going, we all could have been dead had it not been for the assistance of Fida and for the assistance of the others in this crew.
I'm not here to condemn them, but they're going to have to understand that there's a certain playbook that gets used. We're going to do things the way we're supposed to do them because all that was decided before we even took off. We have to be flexible in the moment, I agree. And we certainly don't want to rile up 2 different factions. That's why that information about where they are is critical. We want to land somewhere far beyond their reach if we can. We will have to at some point negotiate with them. That may be difficult, but the plan, as dictated, means that everyone is woken up because we need all hands on deck to begin the colonization process. There is no other way to do it effectively without draining resources in one specific area or the other. I mean, we have no manufacturing facilities. We have no way to create anything. We have people who might be able to build us something to begin creating with. But there's a large chunk of this colonization process now that is going to have to be completely reformatted. And that is what I am trying to wrap my brain around. Hopefully, FIDA can assist us with that. But ideally, I'd like to commission them all temporarily to work for the federated colonies. We don't have to put them in power armor or anything, but we do have to make sure that we know who they are. Them being some sort of rogue third party that dances in and out of the program is a bad idea. Their independence is dangerous. I need you to see that, Colonel.
Understood, sir. Where do we move from here, sir?
Well, if you're not careful, I'm going to put you in the brig. There's about 16 different situational protocols that you broke just by all the things that you've done. I'm going to push them aside for now because I'm going to consider you to have had to have done them. But if anybody from the administrative offices finds out what has happened here, they will have me in a sling to do something about you who decided to go off the reservation entirely with the plan.
Yes, sir.
You're going to have to clean that up. And the other Legionnaires that wake up, they're going to be looking to you for direction. You wear that rank for a reason, Colonel. You're going to have to earn it.
Yes, sir. Understood.
Okay, so let's get to some good news. It seems that the administrative staff is intact.
Huh. To know. How many of the council?
All 13. For whatever reason, they went against protocol and packed them here on the Nadir. And so we have a standing council member of every single faction. And so we can, provided we have a space to do so, form a federal colonial government. We don't have to find someone else. It also means that the security that we're going to need is going to be high. As some of those people begin moving around and readjusting is going to take some time. You'll be hopefully employed working and helping them understand what differences in time has been and how they need to get adjusted. The Federal Council isn't easy to maintain and keep together. Telling them they've lost 250 years of their lives and a large chunk of the vessel that they poured almost every last waking moment and dollar completing is going to be difficult to stomach.
I will do my best to help them as they wake and help us to do what was set out for us. Do you have any anticipation of when you're going to awaken them? Or do we need to further secure things on the ground first?
They're in process now.
Oh, good to know. Okay.
Part of the directive. It protects the people from the military. Once there are enough of them awake, I'll formally turn over control of the Nadir to the government. They'll begin making decisions as a political body, and you know what that will mean.
Paperwork. Meeting that should be an email, meeting that should be a letter, meeting that should be a Post-it note.
Thankfully, there is no paper here that I can tell.
Oh, that should both help and hinder the process beautifully.
But there will be meetings, and there will be decision makers who have differences of opinion about what we're going to do, which is why I am strongly urging us to be able to begin the colonization process before the council fully wakes up. Because if they are awake too soon and we haven't started the process, they could stop it from happening. And we could become another after echo of a deliberative body. I don't want to die in space because people want to talk.
Sir, if I could, I know that you are probably not too keen on too many of my suggestions at this time. Understandably so. And with the understanding that I may sleep in the brig tonight. Full understanding. I still double down on the fact that Tamarisk, Amara, and FIDA that we rely on them to help us with the relations for those on the planet. Some of these on the planet, we may not know the entirety of their boundary holdings. Even if going on the other side of the planet, some of them may have trade routes or ways or forms of passage to go through one place to another. They may have other outposts of their own that we are not familiar with at this time. However, we do have, in our case at this time, a standing of a relationship between those two parties. If we could have a few things happen at the same time, right? If we make the move to land, to go as we were discussing with them about water, see if we can reestablish a connection with them to discuss other resources and things, while we establish that, hey, is this a good place for us to park, for lack of a better phrasing? I think we can have more than one thing at the time, and I say this knowing full well and putting it on me changing my entire residency to the brig if needed, that being able to use their ship as a resource to transport back information back and forth between the Nadir and the planet. I trust them. We've been alive for 10 days. If they leave, I fully accept the consequences on my shoulders.
Fabulous. Okay, Cordelia, here's what you're going to do for me. You are going to make a social roll.
Yay!
Against the Major General. So he is a tier 6 character. And so the base starting is 18. I need you to convince me.
I am trained in all tasks related to social interaction.
Certainly. Now it's difficulty 5. Keep going.
Would like to use, I have 2 edge in intellect. So that should allow me to spend, that would be 2.
Well, so you're going to first, I imagine, spend effort for this scene.
Effort. Oh, yeah. Effort. We're starting with effort.
You're going to start with your skill, and then you're going to spend effort. And so that will take it to 4.
Mm-hmm. And then...
Yeah, you could spend pool points.
I would like to spend pool points. What's the maximum amount of pool points? I can do just 1.
Yeah, you can technically spend enough to, send a spend. So you have, with your intellect effort, your intellect tier is, your intellect edge is what, 2?
I have an intellect edge of 2, and I have 10 in intellect right now.
So you only have to spend 1 point out of your intellect pool. Normally you'd have to spend 3. You only have to spend 1. Okay, so that gets it from a 6 difficulty to a 3. That's 9 or better now. That's, as a tier 1 character, that's about all you can do.
Yeah, that does in fact seem about all I can do. That lowers it down to 3, which makes it a difficulty of 9. And I have just one other question. How do player intrusions work? Is that spending XP in order to allow for a player intrusion?
Yeah, it sure is. But remember also, you have player XP that could go to rerolls if necessary.
Ooh, am I allowed? How much do intrusions cost? 1 XP?
1, yeah.
Okay, so if I use 1 XP on the intrusion and then none of this still works, would I still be able to spend another XP on top of that to reroll?
No, I'm gonna make you choose. Because what's the fun if I don't make you choose?
That's fair. All right, I'm gonna hold on to that one for a reroll. So the difficulty is 3. I would love to reroll that.
Okay, so I'm gonna ask you, the player, Mare, what did you roll? Did you roll a 1?
For the listener at home, Mare is covering her face, shaking her head, and then when asked, "Did you roll a 1?" she nods very sadly.
I can re-roll that still, right?
This is really important. It's almost critically important to me that we know this, because what I want to make sure is that you are still allowed to re-roll even if you critically fail, because, well...
Oh, no.
Yeah, you know what? I'll just rule by Game Master Fiat. I think that's the best way to do things. I'm going to let you do that, but I am also going to play a GM intrusion on you. So I will give you a point of XP, which you'll, of course, be able to immediately spend. And you can go ahead and give one of your friendly piratical crewmates one of your other XP points. And we'll talk about what the intrusion is.
Oh, boy. I think I'm going to have to give this one to the captain, because I have a feeling that whatever's about to happen to me, the captain's going to have to further explain the word captain. Sorry.
That sounds great. Thanks.
Enjoy that. I'm going to use that XP to reroll.
Go for it.
That's a 13.
Okay. The difficulty to meet over on a D20 was 9, so you pass. And now for the intrusion. So the Major General looks across the table and says, I think it's reasonable. I think it's reasonable that they help us. They have more actionable knowledge than anyone else that we're dealing with, and we don't throw resources away, Colonel. But I'm going to need you to be pretty clear and direct with them, okay? That ship that they came in, it needs to have a federal officer running it, which means you're in charge. You clear that up with Captain Amara Kazra any way you choose, but you've got to be in charge. It's the only way the rest of the Legion will accept it.
Yes, sir. Understood.
We'll forego any brig time for now. I don't think it's necessary. You've probably been in pretty difficult circumstances.
Thank you, sir.
Sleep fast, Colonel.
Thank you. She would stand and salute to him, and once dismissed, would exit the door, exit then out through the remainder of the bridge, and take a huge exhale once she's alone in the hallway. Okay. And she would try to actually slip off at least into an area where she would be able to get closed communication. And I think she's actually going to call Rakam very quietly.
I love this for you. Okay. You call Rakam. You're in a passageway, right? So for time purposes, the rest of the crew has been diplomatically escorted down to where the bunks are. You've been, in effect, surrounded by members of the Legion who don't make a whole bunch of chitty chat, and they basically say as little as necessary. You would also probably all understand that they're very recently out of cryo, which means they're dealing with all of the sort of mental and physiological problems when it comes to de-icing. So they probably don't want to talk an awful lot. But Cordelia, we'll stick with you for just a few more seconds. You call Rakam.
Hey, Rakam.
This is your friendly operator. How can I help you?
Yes, hi. So, good news. We're going to be able to use the Periphery soon.
Oh, no, I heard.
Oh, you heard? Okay, good. So you were listening. Good.
Do you know that the Nadir has a completely integrated public address system that also sound tests each space it's in? It's a wonderful little system that leaves microphones all over the ship because it has to test for audible, the decibel levels in each space to adjust the sound that comes out of the speakers. And so I can hear everything.
Gotcha. Hey, how would you like to take a field trip back to the Periphery so that we don't have to worry about you getting, caught in the ship?
Oh.
Are you able to get back there on your own, or?
Certainly. They're not smart enough to be able to sever the data link at this point.
Okay, good. Okay. Yeah. Probably be better to hide out on there.
Okay. Keep in contact. Let me know if the crew needs anything.
Yeah, cool. Will do. Just wanted to make sure you didn't need a little ride over, like last time, or to sever the connection, or whatever. Yeah. Anyway, yeah. Also, so you heard, how am I supposed to tell Amara this?
Very carefully.
Cool.
Keep in mind that the ship is her way to find her mother. So when you tap on that sort of third rail, you're going to electrify that topic. She needs the ship to find her mom. That's one of the things that's big on her list. And if the military, i.e. you in this case, take over the control of the ship, it means that she doesn't have the freedom to do it. And I don't know if I've ever seen the captain really appreciate anyone taking away their freedom of movement.
Okay.
So genuflect, right? Pay lip service to the idea that you've taken over the ship. Pantomime, masquerade, whatever you want to call it. It can be one way in front of everybody else, and then everybody knows the real story. Sure, you can work that out.
Okay, I can work that out. I've got that. Yeah, I can do that. Thanks for calm.
Sure, I'll be here keeping the engines warm.
Thank you. Okay. And she would disconnect from there. And make her way to the crew.
So the crew is in a 10-person bunk area. So this bunk area is been completely segmented. They're segmented by 10s in each sort of space. And it looks like one of these bunks is already in use. Cordelia, you walk to the bunk that you use. They put the crew with you in your own bunk. And I would say that it is very militaristic in the sense that, I don't know if you've seen bunks on a submarine, but very similar, that there's only so much room to sort of stack people up and go from there.
I sleep on the floor.
Yeah, you wouldn't fit in these bunks.
I stayed in an officer's bunk before, and that was tolerable, but this is...
So after being dropped off, eventually Cordelia comes back. It takes about probably 10 minutes total between the time when you're there. Those of the crew here has had a chance to sort of look around. Again, Spartan conditions, ones I guess some of you might even expect. I think the toughest part probably for you, Tamarisk, is that everything is the same motif. There's no originality. There's no inspiration. Everything here is sort of gray. There's no colors at all in here. There's no flexibility. It seems really rigid.
Stifling, that's what it is.
But yeah, the doors whoosh back open and a different colored suit of power armor walks through the room.
Hi.
Your skin's still intact. That's nice to see.
Yep, and I'm not in the brig, which, that I could deal with depending on how long it is, but it's, it wouldn't be my first time. So, I've got some news. I've got a couple bits of news.
Friday looks up from where he's been lying down. In our 10 days together, he has gotten very used to some of Cordelia's inflections and speech patterns. He's like, oh boy.
So, the first bit of local news is that they are already in the process of waking up the Council of 13, the 13 political members who are going to be doing that. So we've got roughly within this 24-hour window before their brains start thawing out to the point to be able to start doing what politicians do, which is talk a lot and then slow everything down. That's number one. If slowing everything down on colonization is something you guys are about, then that is a good thing, but also means that there's more people alive on this ship and we still don't have the resources to continue to live terribly comfortably. So there's one. So the Major General has decided that it may be useful for us to be able to use the Periphery.
I mean, yeah, having a small ship that can, having us being able to go off and do stuff is definitely useful.
Yes. He did 100% question you guys being, what I called you the first time too.
Pirates.
Yeah, pirates, yes. He did say that. Also, did you know that this whole ship has microphones in it?
Oh, yeah. You didn't?
I don't think about these things. But it's good to know. So there's that. There's also, and so yes, we'll be able to use the Periphery as we start to keep a few things moving here. You all sitting down? Yeah, sit down. You can sit down. Per the protocols that we have on here, and as it is, the Major General has placed me as the commander of the vessel at this time.
Yeah, I'm sitting in a chair and I have my legs up on the table, crossed. Is that so?
That is what the Major General said. And you can see that even though knowing now that there's microphones places, Cordelia's trying to make faces, like looks of like, that is what the Major General said. Those are my orders for things for me to do. And in order for others to listen and for us to have permission to be able to use the vessel for things that need to be done. And eyebrows going wild, just shy of a game of charades, trying to gesticulate a second meaning underneath.
If this hurries the process of colonizing the planet in a safe and correct manner, then that's fine. I'll continue to play the Major General's games.
Cordelia wishes that she had the mind powers of the Oni that she came across to be able to psychically link. She even has a moment where she looks kind of to Tamarisk to kind of like emphasize, knowing that perhaps maybe it would come through a little more what the intention is here.
Mm-hmm.
So that will be our business moving forward for the time being. And I thank you all for your understanding.
If you say cooperation in your speech, I will come over there and take your power armor off.
I said understanding. I said understanding. She backs up a little bit. It's fine. Just because the game changed doesn't mean that we have to change what we were doing.
I agree, but your Major General can't find certain things. I don't trust him.
I understand.
I do want to talk to your administration once they're woken, though. They might be a little bit more protocol-centric.
Of course. Oh, they love talking. That is actually, yeah, they will have a lot of conversations about how they're going about doing the thing. And then there are going to be several who are going to disagree about how to do the thing. But it is important for us to keep this from becoming a military-run faction aboard the ship. So having the civilians waking, while I do remain concerned about the survival of all of us, particularly with food and water and all of those good things, that if you would love to speak with them, Captain Kasra, you can be my guest.
So what's next, boss?
I guess we rest for a little while. It's been a lot of thinking today. It's been a lot.
My arm still hurts from where that thing bit me. I mean, it looks an awful lot like a bullet wound, but it's hard to believe the teeth work at that. I mean, space is weird.
Space is weird.
I think it's reasonable after the hours and hours and hours you have been awake that the crew is probably going to need to get some sleep. Because what comes next is going to take all the rest they have. I will ask if anyone here would like to regain any pool points they may have spent.
Yes.
As a generous person, allies who have spent the last day with you add +1 to their recovery rolls.
Fantastic. So anybody making a recovery roll can roll 1d6 +1 and then +1 again. So 1d6 +2.
5.
A 7, baby.
Rolled a 4, so +2, that's 6. That takes me back up to full in my intellect pool.
Fabulous. Okay. So for today's event, I'm going to give you all 3 XP. I think you all played well in character. I think that you all did the level best job to deal with a rocky situation. Some of you learned that maybe not talking was better than talking, but we'll get to that. And I look forward to all of the shenanigans to come as we get set for colonization and the problems and challenges therein. So thanks, everyone, and good night.